If you've ever checked out my education, or if you haven't, if there's one piece that I've ever put out into the universe that you should be watching to prepare yourself for 2024, it's this particular live stream that I've repurposed into this podcast lesson. I don't know if you've heard of The Zone, but I was in the zone. I was on fire. I pretty much blacked out. I'm just kidding. But honestly, I was enthused, I was motivated, I was hitting all the key points, and even halfway through, I was like, man, this is a really good live stream. So I go over all the fundamentals, all the planning, all the key components that you're gonna need to experience massive amounts of progress in your jazz piano performance in 2024. So definitely check this out. I promise you it's worth the long amount of time that I take to explain through everything. And again, I cover the 3 most important goals that you need to know: how to play in a band, comping, solo piano, and improvisation in this hour and 20-minute long masterclass on how to plan for 2024. My name is Brendan Lowe, creator and founder of Jazz Piano School. My new Accelerator program is still open and our holiday specials are still going on. You can check all of that out by going to jazzpianoschool.com/holiday. The Accelerator program officially starts January 11th, and I have 7 spots left in that private program, which gives you access to me and my Jazz Piano School educators. With that being said, let's dive right in. My name is Brendan Lowe, creator and founder of Jazz Piano School. Thank you guys so much for being here. I want to be concise today. I want to dive right into the points, and I want you to understand the correlation between the exercises that you're working on and how it translates into your ultimate goal of playing tunes. And recently, I've been getting so many emails from students, right? They're practicing things and they're working on things, but they're just not really seeing any tangible results in their goal, right? And ultimately, the goal that you have is to play music. It's to play tunes. It's to express yourself through this amazing art of jazz by opening to a real book, getting that all going, and playing through it. And that's your goal. It's not anything else besides that, right? But the exercises are the vehicle which allow you to do that. And a lot of you can't see the correlation, so I want to make that for you today. I'm going to be very concise. I'm going to be very to the point. So the first thing I want to start with, again, I want to recap. There are 3 goals you should always be working on. This is my own personal system. It's my teaching philosophy I've developed, and I've actually been tweaking over the past 15 years since I started creating Jazz Piano School. These 3 goals, from easiest to hardest, are going to be, number 1, you're going to have a goal of playing in a band, playing with others, or accompanying a group sing-along, accompanying another player, anything like that. Goal number 2 is going to be solo piano. So you'd have a goal of playing solo piano jazz. You'd open up to a real book, and you want to be able to play solo piano, sit down at a piano, and just play without music if you memorize the tune, right? Or even if you have a tune in front of you, taking the chord symbols, taking the melody, and translating that into a creative, expressive arrangement that is being spontaneously produced on the spot by yourself. That's goal number 2. That's a little bit more difficult. It requires a little bit more training, a little bit more education. Goal number 3 is going to be improvisation. Now, improvisation can be in 2 formats: solo piano or with a group. I'll say that again because it's very important. These are 2 distinctly different training paths and abilities. So write this down so you understand this. You should be writing all this down, really. Goal number 3, the most difficult because it requires the most amount of education, the most amount of technique, the most amount of control in your hand, right? And the most amount of time to get good at. Improvisation. And an improvisation can be done in 2 different types of formats. It can be done in solo piano or it can be done in a group. Both are 2 distinct paths, distinct different types of exercises, distinct training, different sets of skills. So if you want one or the other, you clearly need to make a decision about what you want to be able to do. Now, I'll tell you this. Improvisation
in a solo piano style is one of the most difficult things that you can do in jazz. The reason for this is because your right hand is spontaneously making decisions. It's moving about, it's improvising, and guess what? Your left hand is responsible for comping for your right hand and also making spontaneous decisions to support your right hand. You're doing everything all at once, everything is spontaneous, and there's little to no systematic process because everything you're choosing is a variable, right? Hi, Eric, just saying hi to a couple people. Thanks so much. If you guys have questions throughout this live stream, please put them in the chat and I will answer them. So again, just to recap what I've been talking about, goal number 1, okay? Your goal to play in a band or accompany an instrumentalist, a vocalist, or a sing-along, whatever. Goal number 2, solo piano. You want to sit down at the piano, you want to open it up to a real book sheet, lead sheet, play solo piano. Goal number 3, improvisation. 2 formats for improv you need to choose. Be specific. Which do you want? Playing in a group or playing and improvising with your right hand in a solo piano style format. Again, 2 distinct abilities. Okay. By the way, goal number 2, solo piano. In my teaching philosophy and system, I break this down into 3 categories, 3 tempo categories, because each of these categories has a different systematic approach to learning and producing results in your playing. Category number 1, ballads, 84 BPM and under. Category number 2, slow swing, about 84 to 98 BPM. Category number 3, medium and up tempos, about 98 and up. Those 3 categories are, again, same as what I talked about in improv, different systematic paths, different approaches, different exercises, different learning curriculum stuff. That sentence didn't come out right, but you get what I mean. So is there overlap? For sure, there is overlap, but you need to be specific about what you want. The more you can get specific about exactly what you want, then I can promise you, I will give you the exact exercises to get you there, and I'll tell you exactly why what you're working on translates into your goal and how it's going to produce your goal for you in a short amount of time. But you need to choose. You need to be specific. Go get the workbook. You can get the workbook by going to jazzpianoschool.com/2024. This is going to give you the planning workbook for 2024. Write down your goals. You can go through the quarters. I would suggest 1 goal per quarter. Only focus on that goal and do the practice exercises that I've given you in session 2. Again, I'll be refilming that, releasing that to accomplish and move forward quickly to your goal. Okay. By the way, my private accelerator program that uses all my systems and philosophies and teaching methods, including what you're seeing here today, is now open for enrollment, which is giving you all a chance to study with me, study with my JPS instructors, get private coaching, private lessons, recorded access to all the archives of everything that we do for you, all the lessons, all the good stuff, private community. This is now open and it starts January 11th. It's a 90-day program. It's heavily discounted right now for our holiday sale. And you can go to jazzpianoschool.com/holiday to check out that accelerator program. If you're really looking forward to making a jump or wanting to make a jump in your jazz piano performance, there's 11 spots left. Someone signed up yesterday. We're getting enrollments about 1 a day right now, so it's going kind of quickly, so I highly recommend you go check that out. If you're not interested in committing to like a 90-day program with live coaching, live lessons from myself and my educators, there's all of the other courses. Everything's on sale right now inside of Jazz Piano School. All the courses, all my education, all my systems, all my philosophies. You can go through everything on that page, and it'll give you all the descriptions. Boom. Let's jump right in. Here we go. So I'm going to go over goal number 1. I'm going to review a little bit of what I'm teaching you. Again, very concise. Goal number 1, all you need to achieve a goal of comping or accompaniment is rootless voicings. Here are my rootless voicings. I'm not going to go through all this too slowly. You can go back to session number 1 to watch this. But here are my rootless voicings. When I learn my rootless voicings, this is what they allow me to do. They allow me to comp through tunes in zone 1. Now, zone 1, my definition of zone 1, which is my own just like philosophy of teaching. It's the system I've created to teach you comping. Zone 1 is right hand rootless voicings, left hand bass notes. So any tune I want to comp for people, I'm going to play right hand rootless voicings. Have You Met Miss Jones? That's all I'm doing. That's all you need to do. That's all I'm doing is just using right hand rootless voicings, left hand bass notes. That's zone 1 of comping. Obviously, we have more areas to the piano. Zone 2 in my system is adding 1 note to our left hand. That's it. We're adding 1 note to our left hand. Our right hand stays completely the same, rootless voicings. I'll do the same exact tune. Right? So here's my F major 7 rootless voicing. Now in my left hand, I'm going to play either 1 and 7, 1 and 10, or 1 and 3. Okay, so I've added 1 note to my left hand on every single chord, but I have 3 different options. Does that make sense? I have 3 options to choose from. See this? 1 and 7, 1 and 3, 1 and 7. My right hand's just rootless voicings. 1 and 3, 1 and 7, 1 and 3, 1 and 7. Zone 2 is a little bit higher on the piano. It gives a little bit of more full texture. It's a little bit, just due to the register, the resonance of this register. It's still below the melody. It still sits below the melody for the most part. It's a great register to comp in. It's in between the low end and the mid part of the piano. Couldn't find that word. Zone 2. So moving on to zone 3. Zone 3 is going to be all drop 2s. I'm still using my rootless voicings. Are you guys getting this picture? Actually, let me skip zone 3 for a second. Let me go to zone 4. In zone 4, I'm using my rootless voicings now in my left hand. My right hand has octaves, diatonic octaves within the key. So if I'm comping through Have You Met Miss Jones, I'm just going to play octaves up here. Left hand has rootless voicings. Don't pay attention to the chord symbols that are being displayed there because they're completely wrong. Again, left hand rootless voicings, right hand diatonic octaves that are in sync with my left hand. Okay. Let's go back to the mid part of the piano, which I call zone 3. So zone 1, right hand rootless voicings, left hand bass notes. Zone 2, right hand rootless voicing, left hand has 1 and 7, 1 and 3, or 1 and 10. Zone 3 is going to be drop 2s. Drop 2s. Zone 3 is one of the most difficult areas to learn because of the tool you need to learn. The tool you need to learn, the concept you need to learn is a drop 2. How do we do this? How do we practice it, right? We need to practice these so we can integrate them into our playing, so we can play them over all tunes. I'm going to take my rootless voicing. I'm going to take my F major 7 rootless voicing right here. Here's my F major 7 rootless voicing. I'm going to drop the second note from the top down to my left hand. Just like this. I'm going to do that for every single rootless voicing. Here's my D7 rootless voicing. I'm going to drop the second note from the top down into my left hand. Here's my G minor 7 rootless voicing. I'm going to drop the second note from the top. The top is on the right, bottom is on the left. Second note from the top down to my left hand. And I'll continue to comp through Have You Met Miss Jones like this. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. D minor 7, G minor 7, C7, F major 7, D7, G minor, C7, A minor. Now, clearly, I've worked on this tool. I've worked on this concept. But what does it start with? What do all zones have in common? Hopefully, you can answer that question. The rootless voicings. The rootless voicings. That's it. Right? Now, every single comping zone involves the use of your rootless voicings. So doesn't it make sense if your goal is number 1, to play or accompany other people, right? In a band, in a sing-along, doesn't it make sense to just learn your rootless voicings like the back of your hand and then boom, presto changeo. This goal is accomplished. It's done. It's off the table. But the struggle with students is that they don't go far enough. They don't practice their rootless voicings deep enough to know them like that. You have to be able to play your rootless voicings however you want, as quickly as riding a bike. Right? This needs to be like clockwork. Now, is it easy? No. And a lot of people struggle with practice. But all you need to do, take structure 1 in your 2-5-1s. 2-5-1. Boring, tedious, people don't understand why they're doing this. I'm telling you right now what the purpose of this exercise is. Listen very carefully to what I'm saying. Don't have any preconceived notions of how you think you should learn jazz, anything else like that. The reason you are learning your rootless voicings in this particular moment in time in this education is to accomplish goal number 1, because I use my rootless voicings in zone 1 to comp through all tunes. All tunes. All tunes. It does not matter what tune. Just friends. There'll never be another you. Every single tune you can comp through with your rootless voicings. So to practice them, the first thing you got to do is learn them in your 2-5-1s. Your 2-5-1 is the most common progression in jazz. When you accomplish your 2-5-1, you're going to be taking out 80% of the progressions you see in tunes. Remember, tunes are just progressions in different orders. So if you can tackle the progressions in your exercises, then when you get to tunes, it doesn't matter what tune you flip open to. You'll have practiced the 2-5-1. And when you see the 2-5-1s in a tune, guess what? Boom, you can play them, right? The thing where students get hung up is that after you've worked on your 2-5-1s through your circle of force for both structures, right? Here's structure 1. Here's structure 2. Then when you experience progressions outside of 2-5-1s, this is where you get hung up. So what do you need to do to solve that problem? You need to practice your rootless voicings outside of 2-5-1s, meaning you just need to isolate the chord quality. So what we're going to do, take structure 1, 3-5-7-9. We're going to practice all our minors, just our minors. When you can do the circle of force, start doing chromatics. C minor, D flat minor, D minor, E flat minor, E minor. The tempo scale that I give in my systematic teaching is 120 BPM. When you can do these exercises at 120 BPM, you have them. Okay, you have them, right? Then you want to do dominance. Again, go through the circle of force first. C7, F7, B flat 7, E flat 7, A flat 7. Right? I don't need to think because I've drilled it so many times. And students say, Brendan, I've drilled these a lot and I still don't have them. Do you know what my solution to you is? Do you know what I'm going to say to you? Keep drilling them. That's all it is. It's not a secret, guys. It's not some magic formula. It's not a magic pill. It's simply the fact that you just need more practice. You just got to keep drilling them. You just got to keep working hard at them to get them like the back of your hand. That's it. And I promise you, if you sit at the piano, right, and you spend time on this every single day and focus only on this without trying to chase shiny objects, you will get these like the back of your hand. Then we do our majors, right? So on and so forth, chromatics, all majors, chromatics. Then you can do whole steps if you want. And again, then finally your goal, your test for this particular goal. Goal number 1, how to accompany other people in a band, whatever, sing along, open up to any real book chart and see if you can comp through the chart in zone 1. If you can do that, you've accomplished goal 1. Now, clearly there's other zones. The other zones require different sets of skills, a different set of tools, a different set of practice exercises. Zone 2, what do you think you're going to need to practice in zone 2? I want to train you and teach you how to fish. I don't want to just give you the fish. So check this out. What practice exercise are you now going to need to comp in zone 2? Think about it for a second. What has changed? Well, your right hand voicings are the same, but what has changed? Your left hand. So you need to clearly practice what your left hand is doing. in this particular zone. If you want to use this zone, 1 and 7 to 1 and 3 to 1 and 7. Now that's within a 2-5-1. What did I say earlier? If you were listening, right? Once you got them in your 2-5-1s, then we need to isolate them because we're not always going to experience 2-5-1s. So if I want to play a 1-7 in a rootless voicing, and let's say the progression is G minor 7, B flat minor 7, D flat minor 7, C minor 7, I need to be able to practice all my minors, all my majors, all my dominants, so on and so forth, etc. So I'm going to practice these in 2 different ways. 1, 7, 3, 5, 7, 9. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go around the circle of force. Let me start in the key of C, actually. C minor, F minor, B flat minor, E flat minor, A flat minor, D flat minor. That's 1 and 7. Now I'll do 1 and 3, 7, 9, 3, 5. Before I did 1 and 7, 3, 5, 7, 9. Now I'll do 1 and 3, 7, 9, 3, 5. I move to F minor. I move to B flat minor. I move to E flat minor. Okay? We continue to work on this tool. Again, why are we practicing this? Why? It's not just to practice. That's not the purpose. It's so that you can achieve goal number 1 and achieve zone 2 and add it to your tool bag. You got zone 1 down. Now you got to get zone 2 down. So maybe for quarter 2, you're just practicing zone 2. You're just practicing these exercises so that you can use zone 2 effectively in tunes like Have You Met Miss Jones? 99% of students grossly underestimate the amount that they think they need to practice to get something. I'll say that again. 99% of students drastically underestimate the amount of time it takes to really get a tool or a concept in jazz piano, and they move on to something else way too fast. Way too fast. I challenge you in this upcoming year, in 2024, to stick with something, right, until hell freezes over. Just do one thing until you got it. Do not go on, okay? Is it going to be fun? Probably not always, but guess what? Getting better at something and being disciplined, going to the gym every day isn't fun, right? Drill, baby, drill. That's right, Eric, right? A lot of things that we want in life, to get them, we need to go through a process that's not always fun. It's the truth, right? Unfortunately, it's not what we all want to hear. We all want it to be easy. Even myself, I'm not trying to criticize you all out right there right now. I'm speaking to myself too. The more I've trained myself to realize that to get the things I want in life, I have to do things that I am not good at. Over and over and over again. I have to be consistent and disciplined at doing things that I do not want to do. And guess what? I'm human, guys. I do not want to go to the gym every day. I do not want to practice every day. I do not want to do half the things I need to do in my life to get the things that I want. But I realize when I do these things, it's going to translate into success and joy down the road. We need to cancel our short-term vision, our ice cream bowl effect. We need to stop thinking so short-term. Like, oh, here's a cool lick. Here's a cool voicing, right? Ooh, yeah, this sounds good. I learned this 2-5-1 lick by McCoy. Cool, now I know jazz. Unfortunately, you don't. These are like drugs, y'all, right? They're essentially giving you this high for like a day, and then what? Are you learning fundamentals? Are you building a foundation to move forward and achieve the freedom that you want? No. Okay, sorry, I got to get off my soapbox here. Anyway, goal number 1. So that's what that is. Okay, let's go on to goal number 2. Again, remember, guys, goal number 2, solo piano. All the exercises and things I'm about to show you translate into you playing tunes, opening up to any tune in the real book, any tune you want. I'm trying to teach you all freedom. I'm trying to teach you freedom to open up to tunes and play them how you want to play them, how you want to express it, how Mike wants to express it, how Tom wants to express it, how Eric wants to express it, right? 3 styles for solo piano. Please, please, please. This is so important. Are you guys listening? There's 3 styles for solo piano. Ballads, again, about 86 below, BPM and below. slow swing, 86 to about 98, and then medium and up. Okay, these are 3 different styles. What I mean by styles is I mean systematic processes and approaches that you're using on the piano to craft a sound out of that tune. So let me give you an example. If I want to play Fly Me to the Moon, that was just a pretty watered down version of the first 4 bars, right? Essentially, my strategy to playing this in a ballad style way, which I just did. This is probably the cheesiest version of this I've ever played. My approach to that is going to be different than playing a slow swing. Right? What I'm doing in that second example is very, 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 very different than what I'm doing in the first example. Now, if I go to a medium swing, right? That's very, very, very different than what I did in the second example, and very different than what I did in the first example. Now, again, my purpose to explaining you is that depending upon what style, what tempo that you want as your goal, like what do you want? Do you want to be able to play ballads? Do you want like a slow, sultry, kind of like Diana Crawley feel? She's not the best example, but just like like that slow kind of easy listening, like dinner. I'm really kind of not doing justice to the, I'm not making the tempo sound good, but you get what I mean. Or do you want that kind of more poppy, like fast swing, right? There will never be another you. Which one do you want? You need to choose. You need to choose. You can't work on all 3. I don't recommend you work on all 3. If you are working on all 3, you're not making as much progress. You're not optimizing the amount of results that you can get. And I would probably say, again, when you multitasking is overrated. If you're trying to do everything at once, where are you going to go? Probably nowhere. Okay, so choose one. I would encourage you to stick with ballads because ballads are going to be the easiest and they're going to lead you. They're going to build a foundation for you to lead you into the next styles and the next sets of skills that you need to accomplish slow swing and medium and up. Here's the ballad system. I'm literally going to walk it out for you. I teach this everywhere. It's produced amazing results for the Accelerator program participants. One of the reasons they experience so many results isn't necessarily because of this system, even though this is great, but it's just the accountability. They're able to show up every week and they have to submit videos to me and my staff for review. And then we say, oh, you need to do this more. You need to work on this more. But I'm literally giving you exactly what I teach. I don't teach anything else different for the people that like buy products from me and invest in my education than I do here, guys. I just want you to know that. Like some people think like the internet, well, some people do on the internet, but they hold back. I don't hold back. Like this is literally, if you do this, you will be able to play all ballads. I just want to, hopefully I'm expressing that as clear as day. All right. So when you play a ballad, step 1, melody. I'm going to demonstrate this with my romance and bass notes. So, again, thousands of students ask me throughout the years, why am I practicing this stuff? Why am I practicing this stuff and how does it translate? How does it allow me to play tunes? Because the fun part of jazz is playing the tunes. It's not the exercises. I get that. Okay? So, trust me, this is what you're going to need to do. That's step 1. Learn the melody with your bass notes for a ballad style. Pick any ballads you want. My Foolish Heart. Sorry. Melody, bass notes. It doesn't matter what ballad, y'all. It does not matter. This will work over every single ballad. It'll unlock freedom for you to play every single ballad. Step 2, we're going to place our shells underneath our melody. So here's my melody to My Romance. Okay, I know you're not looking at the real book chart, but you can pull it up after. I'm now going to place my shells. Now my shells of a chord are 3 and 7 of any chord. Here's my third, here's my 7. Here's my third, here's my 7. D is my third, A is my 7. I'm going to play, they don't need to be in that order, by the way. You could have shells like this, A on the bottom, D. It does not matter as long as you have those 2 notes. That's all you need. So I'm going to place my shells below my melody. Now here's the transition, right? The transformation that this creates. When there is no melody, I'm going to place shells by themselves with the bass note. This is a regular G minor triad, so this is why I have 1 and 3 here. Now already step 2 of this sounds gorgeous. Sounds gorgeous. If you played this rendition, this arrangement for your family, for your friends, for yourself, right? This can create immense amount of fulfillment and musical expression in jazz, in music for you if you were to play this in solo piano. And it's so funny to me because it's the simplest thing. Everyone out there listening, it's the simplest thing. They know all these licks, they know all these cool voicings, but they can't do something as simple as that. Can you do that? I want you to ask yourself, can you open up to any single ballad, play through the tune, and place the shells just like I did under the melody without making mistakes? Just ask yourself that question. 100% every time. Shells, melody. Shells without melody. Shells with melody. Shells with melody. Shells with melody. Shells by themselves. Shells and melody. So I'm going to ask you guys again. I'm trying to teach you how to fish. I want you to fish on your own. I don't want to give you a fish. Okay? What do you need to be able to accomplish this step? Everyone out there listening, right? Thousands of people that are going to watch this video. What do you need to be able to accomplish this step? You got the melody, you got the bass note. That was step 1. What component did we add? The shells, the shells. So now I ask you, do you understand why you need to practice your shells? Because if you want to play ballads and use this quick system that's going to generate results in your performance instantly, like this sounds gorgeous instantly. When I demonstrate this to people, they're shocked because they've spent hours and hours and hours on YouTube and reading transcriptions and learning arrangements of other people with all these fancy drop 2s, all these fancy extensions, upper structure triads, right? Great, that's fun, okay? But that's not the 80-20 rule. That's not the stuff that gets you 80% of the way and generates the results to get you to your goal that you want. That is not the stuff, guys. I've been doing this 25 plus years, about 30 years, okay, in jazz. And I'm telling you right now, trust me, as a professional musician, not just jazz, classical, funk, pop, all music, that is not the stuff you should be practicing. If you listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth, I promise you, you will experience much more success. Okay, I'm not trying to be dramatic. I just really want people to understand sometimes it takes a little bit more oomph, you know? So, we need to practice our shells. How do we do this, right? Through our 2-5-1s. Sorry, I'm laughing, guys, because it's boring. It's just, I wish it was magical. I really do. I wish I could sprinkle pixie dust on here and make it seem like the most fun thing ever to learn jazz, right? But if you want to create freedom, what I'm really teaching you here is freedom to express yourself through the tunes. Like everyone tells me that this is what they want to be able to do, but no one wants to do the work it takes to get what they want. I'll say that again. Okay? Everyone tells me that they want to be able to do this, but no one really wants to do the work that it takes to actually be able to express themselves in a tune and create arrangements. So you got to practice your shells. Once you practice through your 2-5-1s, guess what you need to do? Practice outside your 2-5-1s, because not all tunes, as you can see here, My Romance goes from a B flat major to a C minor to a D minor to a diminished to a C minor to an F7. There you have it. The first 2-5-1 was at the 4th measure. So you can't just be practicing 2-5-1s. So this is why we need to isolate. We always need to isolate our voicing. All our minors. All minors. So again, 3 and 7. Take 3 and 7. 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 Then do the other way around. 7 and 3. 7 and 3. 7 and 3. 7, 3. Okay, then you do your dominants. Again, I want to keep saying this, but the purpose of this exercise is for your right hand to learn the notes to your shells so well that you can open up to any ballad in the real book. And when you play the melody, you do not have to be thinking about what shells you're going to place, where they are, or hesitate when it comes time to execute and play the notes. That is literally why you are doing the exercise, and clearly you can see it translates into every single ballad you could possibly want to play. My Foolish Heart. Gorgeous. Listen to this. Right? I could keep going. It's so beautiful what this does. Let's take it a step further, okay? So now we got our shells. My next step is to add the 5. We're going to create, now we have a 3-note harmonization. Back to My Romance. What's our harmonization that we're creating with the melody? When it's aligned with the chord change? We're creating a 3-note harmonization, right? So the next step is we're going to create a 4-note harmonization. Why are we going to do this? I love the why. I love the why. Because my teachers never told me why. They never told me why I was supposed to do something. They just said, do this, do this, do this, do this. Why? Why? How is this helping me? I never knew. I want to tell you guys the why. When we add the 5th and create a 4-note harmonization, it's going to thicken up the sound, right? It's going to balance everything out, and it's going to support the melody in a much more balanced way. That's why we add the 5th, all right? Listen to this, the rich and lushness of this now. Now, again, I ask you, how gorgeous would it be for you to just play a ballad like that in a simple way for yourself, for your friends? If you do what I'm telling you to do, and you put the blinders on, and you close your ears, you don't listen to the sirens on the internet, right, telling you to learn this, telling you to learn that, you can accomplish these simple steps in 3 months, in Q1. I promise you. Work consistently every day at the exercises I'm showing you. You can accomplish it in 3 steps. Now, the last step before we get into some advancements is going to be to add 1 and 7 or 1 and 10 to your right hand, or just a single note bass note. How do we know which one to play in our left hand? How do we know which one and when to play in our left hand? When the melody is around middle C or below, single note bass note. Why? Because it's so muddy down here. When the melody in My Romance moves to here, that's so low that if I were to play 1 and 7 in my left hand, it's going to sound like this or this, and it's just way too muddy. So if the melody is around middle C or down, single note bass notes. If it moves up here to around middle G, okay, 1 and 7. Usually 1 and 7. That's what you're going to play. That's what you're going to look for. If you do have space to play 1 and 10, you can do that. I'm going to show you how to play that in just a second. If the melody's at C5 and up, always 1 and 10. Okay, these are systematic guidelines you can use to accomplish this system. Let's check it out. So again, here, the melody is around F, so it's not quite at G. I do have room to add 1 and 10, so I could do this. That sounds pretty nice. So I'm going to try it out. I like it. I'm going to do that. If you can't reach 1 and 10, I can't reach B flat to D, so what I do is I go 1 and. My rhythm to play the 10th is I jump and I go 1 and. Just like that. It's easy. You just lift your hand and you place it. Like that. And then here, I'm just comping the C minor 7 chord because there is no melody. So I'm going to play shells 5, and I'm actually adding, well, let's stick away from that. I'm just going to play 5 and shells like I told you guys to play. The melody's F here again on a D minor 7 chord. Okay, so it's still a little bit too low for 1 and 7. That's a little too muddy, right? Because remember I said middle G. Between middle G to C is really where you have your 1 and 7s. And then around middle C and up, always 1 and 10. So I'm just going to use single note bass note here. Now here, check it out. I've moved past middle G. So I could use 1 and 7 here. But since it is such a big gap on the piano, I'm going to choose to use 1 and 10. So between G to C, it's a lot of times it is 1 and 7, but you'd still have the option to use 1 and 10. So my melody note is A over a C sharp diminished. So I'm going to go 1 to 10. And again, I'm going to jump 1 and. All right, so I'll do it from the beginning here. Comp. Single note, bass note, 10th. I'm using the melody who's B flat here. This is the melody note. I have my 5th. I have my shells that we accomplished in the previous steps. And now I'm using 1 to 10. Now I'm just going to comp this, right? So I'm going to use 1 and 7. 1, 7, 3, 5, 7. Melody, single note, bass note. Actually, I'll use 1 and 10, okay? As we are doing these drills, how can we still be learning new tunes and incorporating these skills? Right, y'all. So essentially, this is a great question, Tom. Thank you for asking this. This is the question that students ask all the time. Like, how do I learn new tunes and work on these drills at the same time? I want you guys to realize something, that tunes, the chord changes to tunes are just chords, right? The only thing that makes a tune different than another tune is what? The melody and the chord changes. The melody and the chord changes. So let's break this down into our goals real quick, okay? If you want to learn new tunes and you know all your chords, like let's say, Tom, let's say you're great and you can do step 2 of this ballad system approach. I switched the camera. Right, so step 2, remember, is just shells under the melody. Let's say that is all you're focusing on. You're not focusing on step 3 yet. Just master one step at a time. Maybe Q1, you're just focusing on shells with melody like this, okay? Let's say you practice your shells, and you could play your shells any way you want. Right? If you know your shells so well that you can place them however you want at any point in time, if I call out C sharp minor, 3rd on the bottom, F sharp minor, 7 on the bottom, B dominant 7, 3rd on the bottom, right? If you know your shells so well, and that is literally the level you want to know them at, okay? That level I just demonstrated is the level you want to know them at. The only other thing you need to learn is the melodies to the tunes. Because the melodies are the new tunes that you're learning. You're not really learning new chord changes because you know all the chord changes. Every single chord change you see in a tune, guess what, is something you should have practiced before you play the tune. I'm going to say that again. Every single chord change that you see in a tune should be a chord change that you're comfortable and have practiced outside of the tune already. If you haven't, then when you go to play that tune and you come across a chord change you're not familiar with, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to be able to play the tune. And a lot of people make the mistake of confusing that as, oh, I need to learn this tune better. Well, you don't actually need to learn the tune better. That chord change, unfortunately, is going to be in many, many, many tunes. So if you want to kill like 50 birds with one stone, work on that on all the chord changes, and then the only thing left you have to do is work on the new melodies. So Tom, to answer your question, I would be really focused in on the shells or whatever step that you particularly are on. And then if you want to learn new tunes, play your shells through the new tune. So pick a new tune, voice lead your shells through the new tune. So you got your shells down here. Learn the melody separate, whatever the melody is. And then put that together. Right? So you can continuously learn new melodies to new tunes. And again, that's really only about learning the melody. I would just practice your melody with your bass notes. Okay? And then placing the shells underneath those melodies or incorporating whatever advanced step that I'm showing you below the melodies, that really should come quite easy if you've done enough work prior to that. If you've done enough practicing outside of the tune, when it comes time to apply the steps I'm teaching you, for example, putting the shells in fifth below the melody, the only real variable should be, in a great optimal world, if you're following this, should be the melody. Because once you learn the melody, then all the chord changes you've already worked on. That's the secret. That's the freedom of the system that I teach. It takes a lot of discipline for sure. Is it the most fun thing? No. Okay. I could show you and just give you all transcriptions of my arrangements. I could totally do that. I have done it. You could read my transcriptions and play through tunes based on what I play. But that's not what I want for you, and that's not what you want. You want complete freedom. So hopefully, Tom, that helps a little bit. Again, 1 in 7 to 1 in 10, like if I was applying this to a new tune. Body and soul, right? The only thing here I should need to know is the melody because I know the chord changes. I've practiced my minor 7 shells. Here are my shells in my right hand. All the chord changes in body and soul, if I've practiced my shells or my rootless voicings or whatever, through the changes, through my 2-5-1s, and I've isolated it, then when I go to play body and soul, I know all the chord changes. So the only last thing that I shouldn't know when I get to a tune is really just the melodies. That's really the only thing you shouldn't know. And this is where it gets confusing for students because they really do not, they think they need to learn tunes. But tunes are just different sets of chord changes. If you've practiced all the chord changes outside the tune, then you essentially know all tunes. You just don't know the melodies to the tunes. Think about that for 1 sec. It's very, very, very powerful. All right? And again, to make a great analogy, athletes, they don't practice games. They don't practice how to play games, right? So like what students do is they essentially, it's like they're practicing in the game. The game is the tune. And it's like all students are trying to like practice in the game situation. That makes no sense. You need to practice certain skill sets outside of the game. Again, the games are tunes. So that when it does come time for game time, you've worked on your pitches. You've worked on your running or your cutting or whatever sport you're playing, your moves. Right? So when it does come time to play the game, the only variable that's happening right now is the other team, right? Or the melody. You're limiting your variables when you do encounter new tunes. That's all you need to account for. All right. So by the way, guys, I can't go through all the steps in the obviously in the Ballad. I don't have time to do the slow swing, the medium swing, all my systems for that. You can find those in Jazz Piano School. If you want to learn more about the Accelerator program, you can pick that up. They're also kind of outlined in the guidebook, so you can go to jazzpianoschool.com/2024. Pick up the guidebook. You can kind of see the outline of the systematic approaches there. Let me move on to improv. I don't have that much more time left, but I want to get into improv. Improvisation, okay? Let's talk about improv for a sec. The number one thing, I say this all the time. The number one thing, and if you guys have questions, please let me know. Or just observations or things like, well, I try this and I do this and it's not working out. We need to be able to reflect the harmonies of a chord when we're improvising. The number one thing that I hear students do is play notes outside of the chord. The easiest way to start with this is like if I were to play an A natural and a B natural and an E natural. Does that sound good to you guys? Like it doesn't to me. It's not a rhetorical question. Like hopefully, I know I can't see you, but hopefully you're like, no, that doesn't sound good. Right? That's an odd sound. Now the reason why is because I'm not playing notes within the chord at all. I have an A natural, which clashes with the A flat. I have a B natural, which clashes with the C. And I have an E natural, which clashes with the E flat. So when students go to solo, they haven't spent enough time preparing themselves to know the grouping of notes that they have at their disposal to use over top of a chord. They're randomly guessing at the notes. So they might go... That's the first issue. That's probably the number one issue that I see in improv. I'm not blaming you all. You probably don't know what notes. So this is what I want to teach you. Your first step is that, funny enough, the notes that are going to reflect the harmony the most within a chord, if I experience an F minor 7 in a tune, are going to be F, A flat, C, and E flat. Right? It's the 4 notes within the chord. So if I play all those notes and create a solo just from 4 notes... it starts to really reflect the sound of the chord. If I improvise through all the things you are and I just use chord tones, it's going to sound great because all I'm doing is playing the notes from within every single chord. Now, why does that sound good already compared to a lot of students that are learning licks, Herbie licks, altered scales, stuff like that? It's because I'm so within the chord, because I'm only using those 4 notes within the chord tone. And again, this is step 1 for you all. So if you have a goal of improvisation and you can't do what I just did, make that your goal for quarter 1 of 2024, right? And you got to swallow your pride. You really do. You got to swallow your musical pride, okay? And this applies to everything in life. If you want to get better, you have to really understand that you don't know anything. Like, just always assume that you don't know anything, right? And you'll get better, okay? Because you might think you need some other stuff or, like, things not going right. But, like, if you can't do this simple thing, this should really be your first step, right? So even though you're like advanced in some other stuff, like let's say you know your altered scales, but like something's just off, it probably is this. And if it may not be that, it's probably the next step I'm about to show you or the next step after that. So let's say you can do this. Again, great podcast for y'all to check out, completely free. Go to podcast 322. It's called The 10 Assessments You Need to Test Your Abilities in Jazz Piano. And the assessments are directly related to each of these 3 goals. So it gives you tests. It literally gives you playing tests to test your ability. If you cannot open up to any tune in the real book in solo with the chord tones, that should be your first goal. So put that down for 2024, quarter 1. Learn your chord tones. So the first thing you got to do is learn your chord tones. You can learn your chord tones by exercising them, practicing them. arpeggiating them from the root position. You can arpeggiate from first inversion. I'm doing all first inversions now of my minor sevens. Now I'm doing all second inversions. Now, why are we doing different inversions? Well, because my hand isn't always going to be over a root position chord. If I go from a C minor 7 to an F7, I want to be able to stay in the same spot sometimes and play the chord tones to my F minor 7 without having to go like this and jump every time I want to solo. So the way we get better at that is by practicing our inversions separately, voice leading them. F minor, B flat minor, E flat minor. I'm voice leading all my inversions for my chord tones. These are great practice exercises that will directly lead to you being able to achieve the goal of improvising with your chord tones over any tune. You need to do this for all chord qualities, dominants, majors, minors. I'm not talking about minor harmony today too much, y'all, because that's a deep rabbit hole, but all of this still applies to your minor harmony. So your minor 7 flat 5s, your dominant chords that come after your minor 7 flat 5s, right? And then your minor major 7s or your minor 6. Okay, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. I don't want to get too overwhelming, but this is what you need to do. Now, what is missing now? Improvisation is made up of skips and steps. Okay, traditional bebop, which is what a lot of students want, 99% of students, I would say, is made up of skips, steps, and bebop approaches. So we have our skips down. We got our skips. Bebop is so much about skips, but like I said, it's also about steps. If I were to play a solo with all skips, it's going to be all segmented stuff. There's no fluidity. There's no scalar motion. There's no smoothness that connects our skips together. And that's another big component of what makes bebop improvisation sound great is steps. So how do we learn steps? How do we connect our chord tones together? The way we do this is through chord scales. Now, the chord scales, easy for us, guys. Everybody out there, I say guys, plural, as everybody, is that we have 4 notes of the scale already. We already have 4 notes from our scale. The only other notes we're adding in are these 3 other notes between our chord tones. And these are the connecting notes. I call them the glue notes because they glue our chord tones together. They allow us to do this. So if I want to improvise and I want to play some scalar motion, some steps, right? So if I'm playing over all the things you are, and let's say I would do a solo that's all steps now. Here's what it would sound like. Now, this is where students get confused because they're like, how do I translate scales into improvisation? Like, why am I learning scales? Why am I practicing my scales? How do I make improv from my scales? I'm telling you right now, improv is made up of skips and steps, and I'm going to tell you the formula, but those are the 2 components you need. I just demonstrated all steps, right? That doesn't sound great because clearly I'm just running up and down the scale. No one wants that. I get that. And also, no one wants all skips. That sounds choppy. It sounds hiccupy. It sounds segmented. Here is now a balance of both. Okay? Here's a balance of both. Now, how much better did that sound? I was using skips and steps. And already, hopefully, you could hear that it started to sound more like jazz improvisation. Could you not? I'll do it a little bit better. I'll stop using some the root position voicings. Right? That didn't sound that bad. That actually starts to sound better than actually most students can even improvise. And all I'm doing is combining two components, skips and steps, from our diatonic chords. Again, I'm using my chord tones and I'm using my chord scales because the purpose of practicing our chord scales is now, hopefully now that you know why. Why do we practice our chord scales? Why? Why do you need to practice scales? How does it translate into improv? How does it help you become a better improviser? It's because when you combine that texture with your skips, you're 2/3 of the way to creating a bebop solo. You're 2/3 of the way there. You have one more component that's missing. It's the tension and release into the chord tone. The tension and release into the chord tone. Now, how do we get that? We get that through the use of bebop approach notes, or also known as enclosures, also known as side steps. I've heard all sorts of terminology. Now, the terminology I like to use, that I prefer, that I teach, is bebop approach notes, because they directly create the bebop sound when you use them. And the purpose of the word approach, the definition, is directly saying exactly what it's doing. It's approaching. The notes are approaching a chord tone. They are enclosing a chord tone, but they're doing more than that. That's not the reason we're using them. The reason for the approach notes is because they are approaching a chord tone. They're leading into a chord tone. And they're not side steps. I hate that terminology when people call these side steps. They are side steps, but that's not, it relates nowhere close to the meaning or the purpose or the why of this particular tool. Right? So a bebop approach note, it gives us tension and then release into the chord tone. So an example of a bebop approach note is going to be a half step below into our chord tone. So you hear the tension. I'm outside the key now. I have one of those notes, those avoid notes that I told you in the beginning. Remember, I was like, this sounds terrible. But if I use this note, this E natural, you hear that? And I resolve it into a chord tone in this systematic process, then the use of the tension actually starts to create our bebop sound, right? If I do the same thing here with this B natural, if I land on the note like this and just hold it, that sounds terrible. But if I do this, right? How much better does that sound now? Already, I'm creating bebop because I'm using a half step below approach, which is my bebop approach note. It's approaching my 5 of my chord tone, which is reflecting the harmony. And then I'm choosing to go into a skip pattern. I'm choosing to use some skips. And then I fall down into the 3rd of the chord. So I am literally creating bebop lines now. Now, the system to this, I'm going to tell you the secret right now. Please pay close attention. The system to this is if you use a bebop approach note when you start a line on a chord, and you use a bebop approach note to get into your new chord tone when the chord changes. That's the first step. And in the middle of the measure, you have either skips or steps or a combination of both. That is the legit system to creating bebop improvisation. Start with a bebop approach, use another bebop approach when the chord changes, and it will create bebop. Check it out. Here is all the things you are. I'm going to do this in super slow motion. I'm going to start with the bebop approach. So I did bebop approach. This, again, guys, these are advanced, super advanced bebop approaches. So if you're like, whoa, what bebop approach is that? Don't worry. Clearly you can hear all that tension is outside the key. I'm using an A natural, right? So it's all tension and release. Watch for the chord tones. Scalar motion, bebop approach to get myself into my new chord. I'm going to use some scalar motion now. Bebop approach. Skips. Bebop approach. So I'm using a bebop approach every time the chord changes to get me into my new chord. Skips. steps, bebop approach, skips, bebop approach, scalar motion, skips, landing on the chord tone, bebop approach. Do you guys see that? Okay, I'm not going to call out everything now, just see if you can recognize it. Sorry, I screwed that up. Okay, if I do this a little faster. If I do a little faster. So on and so forth, right? It actually starts to turn into improvisation. How cool is that? Those first 3 steps that I include in the workbook should be probably your first 3 goals to learning improv. Because again, I always am about the 80-20 rule. I want to deliver the most amount of results to you in the shortest amount of time. These fundamentals will give you the most amount of results. Now, this is a style. This is an improvisation style. If I were to play a modern style, I would be changing my stuff completely. But a lot of that stuff comes out of learning bebop. I would say that you're going to be 95% better effectively and in a better situation to learn modern jazz if you start with bebop, if you start with everything that I'm teaching you today. That's why I don't start with modern stuff, because these are advanced layers that you can pile onto your foundation. And if you learn bebop first, then you move into that, you're going to be in a way better position. Rather than starting with that stuff, then going back to bebop, it's so confusing, okay? All right. Hey, Samuel. I'm kind of just wrapping up, buddy, so definitely go back and watch everything. All right, guys, I was on fire today. I don't know. Hopefully you could feel it. We were cruising. Good to have you, Sam. I'm just kind of finishing up here. So this is being recorded, so we're going to publish this as a podcast. You can go check out the podcast. You guys can all review this. I'd highly recommend you review this. It's going to be on the Jazz Piano School YouTube channel, right under the live streams. Let me recap everything, okay? 3 goals. Number 1, for the rest of your lives, I want you to split your focus into these 3 goals. Comping with the goal of playing in a band or accompanying others. Okay, 2, solo piano. And with solo piano, there's 3 distinct paths. Ballads, path 1. Slow swing, path 2. Medium and up, path 3. I recommend you start with path 1 because it's the easiest and it will build a foundation that will set you up for the faster tempos, right? Ballads are the slowest. They're the easiest. They require the least amount of dexterity, technique, and education. Okay, those are the steps I was going through today. That's solo piano. Work on tunes that are just ballads. If you're good with all the steps I've taught, work on tunes that are just slow swing. Then work on tunes that are fast swing, medium and up. Goal number 3, the most difficult to accomplish, improvisation. It requires the most amount of knowledge, the most amount of practice, the most amount of technique on the piano. Technique in your fingers, right? But with that goal, again, there's 2 categories: playing improv in a solo piano style, which requires your left hand to do a lot of comping, or playing improv in a group setting. And if you're practicing your improv, I highly recommend you practice with backing tracks like iReal Pro, right hand alone, no left hand. You're not working on your left hand. Your right hand and your left hand are two different skill sets. Don't practice two skill sets at the same time when you can't even do one thing, right? Just work on your right hand. Work on exactly what I'm showing you with iReal Pro so you don't have to worry about the rhythm, the bass, all that other good stuff. All you're doing is definitely just working on these chord tones, the connecting chord tones, the bebop approaches. If you got that stuff down, then you should be able to create excellent solos. I got to demonstrate one more thing. If I create a bebop solo out of the first three steps that I just showed you all, it would sound like this. Right? Now, clearly I'm doing it super fast. I'm being a little fancy, but I'm trying to get the point across that I wasn't using any fancy scales, no altered scale, no half whole scale, no blues scales, no reharms. What else? No pentatonics, no hexatonics, no Herbie licks, no McCoy licks. Everything I played there, and if I do it slower, that was the first three steps. Now, I promise you, 99% of students would give their left hand to be able to do what I just did, right? You don't need fancy stuff, okay? You don't need shiny objects. You don't need McCoy licks. You don't need Herbie licks. You don't need magic voicings. You don't need anything of that stuff. You just need to discipline yourself to work on one thing at a time. Just work on one thing at a time. And if you just work on one thing at a time, diligently, every single day, and go deep with it, ignore your feelings of frustration. Ignore your feelings of not having fun, right? I shouldn't say that. I don't want to take the fun out of learning, but if you can try to find a way, and hopefully you understand the purpose of the exercises, they lead to this. They lead to you being able to do these things through all tunes, like having complete freedom and joy over all the tunes. You're no longer having to work on one tune at a time, right? And then saying, oh, I only know this tune and this tune and this tune because I've only played those tunes. No, that's out the window. That's the old way of learning, okay? When you work on the changes and you work on these drills, they lead you to be able to play all the tunes that you want. Now, yes, use these drills in tunes, guys. I'm not just telling you to drill them and don't apply them to tunes. Please drill them and then use my methodology to use these systems and tools in tunes. Use them in as many tunes as you possibly can, right? Tom, Kathy, all these people out there listening to me, please, once you've worked on these drills, even if they're at like 80 or 90%, yes, open up to the real book and start playing tunes. Have fun, have a blast. Because at that point, if you've put in the work to the exercises that I've given you that are directly leading you down the path to achieve your goal, when you open up to the tunes, you will for sure be able to accomplish your goal of playing the tunes, right? If that is your goal, remember goal 1, 2, or 3. If you want to comp the tune, then you can accompany people for all tunes. If you want to play that tune solo piano style, if it's a ballad, slow or medium and up, then you can play all those tunes because you've worked on the tools. If you want to improvise over tunes and you've practiced the chord tones and the connecting chord tones and maybe you're at bebop approaches, then yes, open up to any tune. Open up to tunes and flip through tunes. Boom, improvise over a tune, flip the tune. Boom, improvise over a tune, flip a tune. Boom, improvise over a tune, flip a tune. Do it again. Do it with your comping. Comp through Ladybird. Boom. right? Comp through Love Is Here to Stay. Boom, right? It doesn't matter, right? Solo piano. Did you work on your solo piano ballad system? You work on your shells? Did you work on putting the shells below the melody? Open up to a ballad, right? Boom. My Romance. Boom. Okay? Body and Soul. In a Sentimental Mood. All the tunes that I'm telling you, if you've worked on the exercise, then you're going to be able to play those tunes. The only reason that you're not able to play a tune is because you haven't drilled the exercise that goes along with the approach that allows you to play the tune. That's it. That's the only reason. You haven't drilled it enough. You don't know it well enough. If your exercises are going poorly, then guess what? When you go to try and open up to a tune, the tune's going to go poorly as well. Right? It's really that simple. If you don't know your rootless voicings, then when you try to comp and achieve goal 1 for a tune, you're not going to be able to play the tune. If you don't know your B7 chord in your circle of fourths for your shells, your rootless voicings, your chord tones for improv, then when you get to a B7 chord in a tune, guess what? You're not going to be able to play that B7 chord, right? So it's not about the tune. Please take this away. It's about drilling these chord changes that allow you to play the tunes. All right, guys. Thank you so much. This was fun. Go to jazzpianoschool.com/holiday. Check out our holiday sale. Lots of amazing courses. All the education that I'm teaching here is in Jazz Piano School. If you want to become a member, if you want to join the Accelerator program, you can definitely do that as well. It's a fantastic investment. You get to work with myself. You get to work with other educators. If you just want some self-study education to go through, then you can definitely pick that up. Go get the workbook. It's completely free, jazzpianoschool.com/2024. You can get the planning guide for 2024 to help you work on the goals that I've taught you here and make progress and all that stuff. Now, clearly, I'm just skimming the surface. Like, I have to jam-pack all this information into these live stream sessions for the new year. But they go deep. That's why the education's super helpful. The Accelerator program's super helpful. Obviously, listen to the podcast. There's over 300 podcasts on Jazz Piano School that are all completely free. There's so many ways to get involved and advance your education with my philosophies, my systems, and the business I've built, which is called Jazz Piano School. And if you do want that private coaching experience in a small cohort of students, my Accelerator private program starts January 11th. It's now open for enrollment, and there's 11 spots left. I'm sorry, I wasn't counting. Yes, 11 spots left. That is open to January 11th. The program starts January 11th. It's a 90-day program. Highly recommend you check that out. You can find that at jazzpianoschool.com/holiday. It's the first option there. Click on Accelerator program. It'll give you all the details and information you need. If you don't want that, hit the back on your browser button. Scan through all the courses on the holiday page. If you don't want that, go to jazzpianoschool.com/2024. Get the workbook, listen to the podcast, and boom. I mean, like, all the education I teach is all on the podcast. Like I said, I don't teach other information inside of Jazz Piano School. There's just more support. There's more help. There's more support. There's more information. There's more exercises, practice videos. You just get more help, right? But if you want to kind of tackle it on your own, there's so much free education on Jazz Piano School. I don't hold back. And again, the highest, most contact with me and my educators for the most amount of help. You know, obviously, if you're getting the most amount of support, then you're going to experience the most amount of results and progress in your playing. That's the Accelerator program. So again, private program, self-study membership courses, podcasts, all the free education on the website. It's up to you. It's up to you. I try to help everybody. How many buddies? Everybody. That's a Corey Henry quote. All right, guys. Take care. Have a great holiday. I'll be refilming session 2 for you. We'll publish this next week over break, probably later in the week. And that's it. Take care. Glad my stream didn't cut out. I'm going to wait for a couple minutes because there is a delay just for everything to catch up, and then I will log off. But thanks so much. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Don't forget to go to jazzpianoschool.com to check out all of our free, amazing education, all of the free podcast blogs. We do have a membership if you're looking to take a next step forward with us, get access to over 1,000 different jazz piano videos, playbooks, mini courses, a main course curriculum, success path, and so much more. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at support@jazzpianoschool.com. I hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, happy practicing.